Recently, I was invited to give a talk in a bank that was celebrating the HR Day. I started off by saying that in the next couple of years, I would like to see this bank's HR Day being celebrated by its customers. Imagine a group of customers getting so excited by the services that the bank is offering. And in the digital era, they have not met most of the people. It was all through digitization. But they may have had phone calls, video calls, etc. And they would be very much interested in having the HR Day celebrated because they found the bank employees who were dealing with them to be so nice, so empathetic, though so considerate, passed on with a lot of initiatives, advice, guidance, and things like that. How great it would be if HR days are celebrated, particularly in pandemic situations like what we have faced, by the people. Because after all, if you look at bank staff are also in many ways corona warriors. Uh, they have to deal with physically a large number of people who don't have, I suppose, easy access to digitization and so on. I like to communicate my appreciation for the great work being done by banks and financial institutions in India. This includes the insurance companies and all those that deal with uh, taking care of people, protecting their economy, financial services, and things like that. I think the banks are doing a good job. But banks also face interesting and difficult times and situations. I think a recent book by Dr. Anil Khandelwal on transformational leadership in banks highlights a large number of issues that these banks are facing. But banks have managed it themselves very well for the last several years. What are the qualifications I have to talk about banks? Just this morning, I was thinking I must say something about Dr. Khandelwal's book. And then I asked myself this question: what is the qualification I have? Then the concept of Hanumanji came into my mind, which I have been promoting, Pygmalion. We quite often tend to forget our own work and how much we know. We, of course, for every bit we know, there is a lot more that we don't know. I acknowledge my ignorance on many things. But my work with banking started in the year 1970 when I just completed a program on developing programmed instructional material, self learning material. There is a whole lot of processes that were there, started by Harvard psychologist B.F. Skinner, and the NCERT started offering a certificate program. And I went through two phases of this program, and we developed programmed instruction material. That was the time State Bank of India was looking for new technologies in training their staff. They've already introduced T group training with people like Dr. Uday Parikh. So when they came to know about the self-learning material, programmed instruction material, they got in touch with one Dr. C.H.K. Mishra of NCERT. And C.H.K. Mishra had his pet team, which included me and one Zahid Ganji from Calcutta. So three of us constituted the Train the Trainer team. And that was the first time I flew from National Institute of Health Administration in Delhi to the State Bank of India Staff College in Hyderabad, located those days in Banjara Hills. One T.L.S. was the principal of that college. We trained a good number of people, like one Govardhan Kathuria was there. He was a part of one of the participants, and a number of them. This was my first exposure to a banking system. The next exposure was when Dr. Uday Parikh talked about the new HRD system we developed for Larsen and Toubro, and State Bank of India and their board unanimously agreed to start the new function called HRD. So we got involved, both of us got involved in giving a series of seminars for State Bank of India. That was in the year 1975-76. I remember going there and talking about it. Immediately after that, the associate banks of the State Bank of India went ahead and appointed HRD managers. The State Bank of India itself took some time, but when the associate banks is appointed, some of them only heard that Uday Parikh and Rao were doing some work, and then they said that, look, we need more guidance. So I organized a program on managing motivation. The program was meant for all people, but a good number of associate bank HRD people came, and we created a organization HRD climate tool and passed on to them to say that your first task is to diagnose the perceptions of people about learning, how they are learning, about performance appraisal, about coaching, and things like that. So that was something like a organizational and HRD climate survey. And the climate survey was conducted, I remember, the active role played by the person, HR manager from State Bank of Saurashtra, then also from State Bank of Patiala and State Bank of Mysore and Indore. So 4 or 5 of them have taken the lead, and they collected data and they started OD interventions. That was the next encounter that I had. Later, when State Bank of India appointed a chief general manager, once Mr. Shanmugam, I think if I recollect, was the first chief general manager of State Bank of India HRD department. They understood HRD the way we conceptualize it: human resource development consisting of performance appraisals, career planning, feedback and coaching, training and learning, organization development, and potential appraisal, and so on. 6 systems we talked of. So Mr. Shanmugam attended a workshop that I conducted at IIM Ahmedabad in late 78. By the time I have already worked at Bharat Movers and introduced HRD systems. So we were all ready. So Mr. Shanmugam came, attended this, and then later they decided to begin experimenting with a performance appraisal system. We spent about 2 to 3 years introducing the new performance appraisal system. We still called it appraisal in those days, with key performance areas, which required every regional manager to sit with each one of his branch managers and to plan the performance of the branch, which took almost about 3 to 4 hours. So we conducted a workshop for the regional manager as well as all 30 and odd branch managers in State Bank of India, Ahmedabad. So the experiment lasted almost for about 2 to 3 years. In fact, Rajan Gupta, who was doing his doctorate at IIM Ahmedabad at the time, even went there to observe things that were happening and wrote a part of his thesis on the basis of this work. So this was a very interesting thing because I still remember the regional manager, the module manager at the time, saying that he has no time to even carry out the routine business. How can he sit with each branch manager almost for half a day to a day? It is wasting time. But when the person started doing this, he discovered that what a great asset that this particular performance management system or appraisal system with a dialogue gives, because he discovered in almost, I think, across about a week to 10 days, we made sure that he met most of the branch managers. And he said, I never looked at my branch managers before in this way. And these 3 2 hours of interaction where they spoke more helped me to understand each branch in its depth. Next time when I visit the branch, I know the right kind of things to ask rather than to keep on doing the checklist of things the bank asks me to do. I'll do the checklist anyway, but I will focus on what will help the branch managers and business. So the new performance appraisal system got the regional manager very close to his branch managers. Unfortunately, this thing could not be fully extended to the rest of the bank. They tried it. I think they struggled for almost about 3 to 4 years. In a large system, you conduct an experiment, it is successful. When you extend it to the entire bank, which consists of over 100 and odd modules, large amount of training is required. I still remember going across the country with one TP Raman and Vijay Raghavan, who was the CGM at the time. and training a large number of trainers to introduce performance appraisal system. I think State Bank introduced by about 1984 the performance appraisal system, but unfortunately by about 1987 or so, I don't remember the exact dates, I think there were changes in the top management. And one of the things that happens unfortunately in a bank, every time there is a change in the chief of a particular kind of a function, he takes time to understand. And HRD is a new technical concept. We trained a large number of people. Unfortunately, all the training got dispersed, and new training did not take place, and there were issues with associations in terms of target setting. So this particular system, I think, went through a lot of revisions. It did not go the way that we thought of. Unfortunately, we have not studied this. I wish we studied. By the time Uday Parikh retired from IIM, went to Indonesia, and I was busy setting up the National HRD network. I used to visit State Bank, which promoted the Bombay chapter and so on, but we did not do much work. I must mention in early 80s, I had another interesting experience of reviewing the Bank of Baroda with one Professor Govindarajan, who most people across the world know today. He is one of the top level management gurus, and Professor Narayan Sheth, at the time a professor of industrial relations. Three of us were requested to examine and suggest branch level reorganization of Bank of Baroda. It was a great experience. We toured around the country. We looked at the zonal offices, regional offices, and made very interesting recommendations, some of which I think the Bank of Baroda had implemented. Also, during the time 1983, when I was in Malaysia, I had the great opportunity to both work with MIDF to develop entrepreneurs, and also with the Institute of Bank Malaysia to promote human resource development. In fact, I have written many articles at that point of time with one Muhammad Iqbal, who was heading the Institute Bank Malaysia, and so on. My next encounter with banks was in mid 90s, when State Bank of India requested me to conduct a series of programs for their module managers, chief regional managers, on achievement motivation and self-discovery. We tried some form of 360-degree feedback, which didn't work, but the achievement motivation part of it worked very well. I think we must have conducted at least about half a dozen programs covering almost all the module managers. I encountered after that was when I think McKinsey submitted its report, and the State Bank of India decided to introduce a new system called Circle Credit Committees. State Bank of India discovered that in Circle Credit Committees, a DGM and a GM and a CGM are sitting, and in a hierarchical culture, normally the lower level people don't open their mouths. So we decided to conduct a series of programs to help people to participate, so that the design which McKinsey suggested of making Circle Credit Committees excellent can be put into. I think that was again a wonderful experience. And immediately after that, Y.V. Reddy, at the time banking secretary, wanted State Bank of India to relook at their promotion policy, and rather than merely going by as an internal promotion, subject them to an external committee, and also use something like an assessment center. That was the time when Reddy Garu and myself went and addressed the board of the State Bank of India. It was a little difficult sell, but we sold them the concept of assessment center without calling it, and that changed the promotion policies, at least from GM level onwards. In this promotion policies, a lot of things have happened, which I will talk in the next video, because I want to limit it for the first 15 minutes and then continue this in video number 2 on my experience with banks in India.